Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Christian, and welcome to CatechesisCraft, where we talk Christianity and play Minecraft. This is the 43rd installment in a series of videos designed as a teaching tool, with the goal of being applicable to all audiences, regardless of how much, how little, or what fashion of faith that you, my wonderful viewers, might have. Today we will be discussing the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Christ, which will be celebrated on June 27th this year. What is the Sacred Heart of Christ? Where does the celebration of this solemnity originate from? How is the Sacred Heart of Christ represented and celebrated today? As I'm sure you can tell, we have a lot to get into, but first I'd like to reiterate the fact that this channel is not focused on Christian polemics. I'm not here to criticize you specifically, my wonderful viewers, for your type of Christianity, nor am I here to force any of you into believing exactly every single thing that I believe. I have faith that each of you watching this video is more than intelligent enough to tell the difference between objective analysis and subjective preferences, but of course, it does bear repeating. One final thing. If this or any of my previous work helps or entertains you in any way, please consider sharing that work with someone who you know would benefit the most from it. Now, without further ado, let's discuss the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Christ. On July 22nd, 1647, in the small town and former commune of Alacoque, France, Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque was born to parents Claude and Philibert. From a very young age, she had shown an intense love and devotion to the Blessed Sacrament and practiced a form of self-discipline known as severe corporal mortification, in which the participant willingly subjects themselves to physical discomforts for the sake of spiritual cleanliness. The history of this practice reaches far into the history of Christianity, and its most common historical forms include fasting, wearing severely uncomfortable clothing, and most provocatively, self-flagellation. Suffice it to say, regardless of the form or forms that Saint Mary Margaret Alacoque participated in, her extreme devotion to Christ in the Eucharist and to fostering a deep spiritual life are worn as a badge of honor by the great saint in heaven today. According to church history, Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque had regularly experienced visions, apparitions, and visitations of Christ for the vast majority of her life, but had simply thought these miraculous acts to be normal to the daily experiences of all those around her. In 1671, at the age of 25, the young woman would enter the convent at the Monastery of the Visitation in Paray-le-Monial and consecrate her life to service as a nun. Her official vocational consecration took place in November of 1672, at which time she spent the remainder of her life in the service of the monastery and the surrounding community. Over the course of her short 43-year-long life, Saint Mary Margaret had been given several private revelations by Christ himself, including the topic of today's video, commanding her to petition for the solemn celebration of the Sacred Heart of Christ. In her first visitation of the Sacred Heart, Christ calls her to spend 1 hour every Thursday night in meditative prayer focused on Christ's agony in the Garden of Gethsemane, which has become the practice known today as the Holy Hour. In December of 1673, just over a year after her vocational consecration, Saint Margaret Mary received a second vision of the Sacred Heart, and Christ allowed her to rest her head against his heart, telling her that his human heart is the ultimate symbol of his divine human love. He wished for her to proclaim this love to the world. Now, her third and final vision of the Sacred Heart would come on June 16th of 1675 during deep devotional prayer in front of the Eucharistic Christ. At this time, Christ appeared once more in person to her, just above the altar, and would say the following to her. Quote, "Behold the heart that has so loved men that it has spared nothing, even exhausting and consuming itself to testify to its love. In recognition, I receive from the greater part of men only ingratitude, by their irreverence and sacrilege, by their coldness and the contempt they have for me in this sacrament of love. But what is still more painful to me is the hearts consecrated to me treat me in this way. Therefore, I ask that the Friday after the octave of Corpus Christi be set apart for a special feast to honor my heart by receiving communion on that day and making reparation to my heart by a solemn act in order to make amends for the indignities that I have received during the time it has been exposed on the altars. I promise you that my heart will open to pour out in abundance the influence of its divine love upon those who shall honor it, or cause it to be honored in this way. Being able to convince her superioress of these things, Saint Margaret Mary was given charge to lead the monastic community in observing these things which Christ had commanded of her, although several theologians and influential people of the surrounding community continued to doubt the authenticity of her claims. Eventually, however, she would convince the monastery's Jesuit confessor priest, Saint Claude de la Colombière, of her authenticity. He would proclaim her visions as true for several years until all persecution of the saintly nun would end by 1683, with the devotion of the Sacred Heart becoming commonplace among this monastic community. Over the next several years, Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, now known to her peers as the Novice Mistress, would continue to lead the monastic community in private celebration of the Sacred Heart every Friday after the octave of Corpus Christi, as well as inspire the construction of the first chapel built and dedicated to it. On October 17th of 1690, at the age of 43, Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque would be given her last rites. During the anointing of the sick and dying, her last words are remembered as the following. Quote, I need nothing but God, and to lose myself in the heart of Jesus. For years following the death of Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, the Jesuit order would privately venerate the Sacred Heart, but the practice would not be officially recognized until 1765. For generations after Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque's death, she and her devotion remained a major topic of theological discussion within the Church, and the veracity of her claims continued to be questioned. But Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque would be beatified by Pope Pius IX on September 18th of 1864. 2 years later, her tomb would be found, opened, and would immediately cause 2 miraculous healings, with her corpse found to be incorrupt. Therefore, on May 13th of 1920, Pope Benedict XV would canonize Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, and the credibility of her visions and the celebration of the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart would be finalized by Pope Pius XI in 1928. Today, the chief elements of devotion to the Sacred Heart of Christ include receiving Holy Communion on the first Friday of every month, participating in Eucharistic adoration on Thursdays during Holy Hour, and of course, celebrating the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart on the first Friday after the octave of the Feast of Corpus Christi. Now, for more information on the Feast of Corpus Christi, please check out our previous video on the topic. The celebration of the Sacred Heart of Christ focuses on Jesus' perfect self-sacrificial love. The long-suffering love of Christ, as it has been called by various sources, is the same infinite, indescribable, and incomprehensible love that drove God to send himself in the form of his Son to be made flesh, to live among us, and to sacrifice himself in the most excruciatingly painful way ever devised by mankind, so that the price for our eternal salvation may be paid. This is why the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart is celebrated around the world today. Within the Catholic Church, the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart is what is known as a movable feast, because the exact date of its celebration shifts year after year. Regardless of the specific date, the feast is always celebrated on the first Friday after the octave of the Feast of Corpus Christi, which can more easily be tracked as the third Friday after Pentecost. In the apostolic tradition, the only predominant celebrations of the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Christ are held by the Catholic Church, with only a handful of Western Rite Orthodox churches celebrating the feast. Historically, the feast has been seen as drawing a little too close to comfort to idolatry for the Orthodox tradition, whose argument stems from perceived theological errors regarding the veneration of particular parts of Christ's physical and metaphysical body. When celebrated in Western Rite Orthodoxy, it is not the heart itself, as in the physical object, that is celebrated, but rather Christ personified in his heart. His self-sacrificial love and devotion to the salvation of mankind is celebrated. Within the historic Protestant traditions, the only major celebrant of the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Christ are some of the High Church Anglican groups whose liturgical structure and calendar are recognizably similar to that of their Catholic progenitors. Outside of the High Church Anglican tradition, the celebration is either entirely unknown among the larger body of adherents, as is the case for the vast majority of the Low Church traditions like the Evangelical movement, the Baptist denomination, and the Trinitarian Pentecostal diasporas, or it is irregularly recognized by other classical Protestant traditions. For us here at CatechesisCraft, the Sacred Heart of Christ itself is at the heart of our own work. In whatever way, great or small, that this channel has impacted the growth of the Kingdom of God, we wish first to proclaim the truth of Christianity through the same love and devotion that led Christ to the cross. No matter what denomination, or lack thereof, that you ascribe to, I hope that this has been educational and has given you, my wonderful viewers, a primer on the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Christ, as well as its place in church history and its theological focus in our lives. As always, I highly suggest that if you are interested in a deeper understanding of a specific denomination's doctrine, the best place to go will always be an actual pastor, priest, or well-lettered theologian in that tradition. I am merely a layman doing the very best that I can with the gifts that God has given me, and hopefully illuminating the path along the way for all of you. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, if you have found it informative or educational in any way, please consider leaving a like, comment what you gained most from it, and of course, please share this or any previous work with those who you believe would benefit the most from it. If you're interested in more videos like this, good news! We will be returning to the Apostolic Fathers series next week with more content well on its way, so please make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications for future releases. This has been the 43rd installment in what I pray will be a long and fruitful series, taking biblical topics and concepts, large and small, and forming them into simple, digestible bites, with a bit of gameplay in the back because, let's face it, it's nice to have something on screen while you're learning. Leave a comment if you would like a certain topic to be covered, as I do read as many comments as I can on these videos, and it is always good to know what my audience wants to see. If you would like the opportunity for your questions to be read out in a video, please send your Q&A questions to our email, catechesiscraft@gmail.com. I will occasionally be posting Q&A videos where I answer directly the questions that you guys have about Christianity. Now, there is nothing off the table, but I cannot necessarily guarantee that every single question will be answered in every single one of those videos. Even still, my goal is to make this an open resource of simple, straightforward, and clear answers that accurately represent the beliefs of Christians across time. If you would like to pick up a Bible for yourself, which, as I'm sure you can tell, is pretty central to our work here, please consider checking out our video on Bible translations and using the links below that video for your choice. Each product linked in the description utilizes Amazon affiliate links, and every single purchase using these links costs absolutely nothing extra for you, but provides us here at CatechesisCraft with a small percentage to help fund our work. You can also become a supporter on Locals for just $10 a month and get access to supplementary articles, blog posts, and at some point, access to live streams and a Minecraft server, both of which are coming soon in the biblical sense. But all of that is completely optional. I'm excited to be on this journey with all of you, and I'm extremely thankful for the fact that you chose to watch this video. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, whenever you happen to be watching this. God bless, and I'll see you all next time.